the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week. And welcome back, folks. Welcome back to Business Story of the Week. And today's question is, how do you turn life's darkest moments into a beacon of hope and resilience so that everyone can shine brightly? Well, our guest today is the man to answer that question precisely. Howard Brown is a Silicon Valley entrepreneur, best-selling author of Shining Brightly, an award-winning international speaker as well, international inspirational podcaster, survivorship coach, health technology consultant, and two-time stage 4 cancer patient and survivor 30 years apart. Amazing, amazing story. He shares the keys to leading a resilient life with hope that drives successful community leaders, business innovators, healthcare providers. And today he is going to help us be prepared and be inspired. Howard, how are you doing? I am excited to have you on. Thank you for coming on the show.
Joshua, I'm thrilled to be here and be on Business Story of the Week. I've been following your show, and you're building such a great audience. So thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. I mean, I'm just as thrilled as you are to have you on here, Howard. I love talking about stories, and you have quite the story yourself. I'm going to dive right into it. I'm going to ask a question, the probably the most common asked question that you've been asked, and that is your story, your survivorship, your first diagnosis with stage 4 cancer. Talk to us about that and how did it influence your path as an entrepreneur and an inspirational speaker. The first one, we're only going to be talking about the first one for this one, but Howard, what is the story of Howard Brown?
Sure. So I was just coming off of graduating Babson College, the number one school for entrepreneurs. I'm right outside of Boston, and I had
Mm-hmm.
started my career. And I was working for a big computer company at the time and went into their
Right.
corporate training program. This is the late 80s. Okay. So this is just prior, to real internet, real cell phone usage. Computer usage was starting. You remember 1984? You don't because you weren't born
Yeah.
yet, but most people that my age would remember that. So it was really the analog days. And so moving out to Dayton, Ohio from Boston, Massachusetts, and I noticed a little red bump on my left cheekbone. And
Oh.
I got out of the car on the Pennsylvania Turnpike and I used a payphone, Joshua. You don't see too many of those
Okay.
anymore, but I used a payphone
Oh.
and I called
Uh-huh.
back to my mom and dad to check in. I got some gas and I said, "Yeah, I noticed something." And they said, "That's probably nothing. It might be,
Mm-hmm.
just, a pimple or just, that's nothing." So,
Uh-huh.
but it started to get a little bigger and I started my job. I got promoted. I was national director of a disaster recovery backup and selling a software product called 911 for banks and retail organizations to have a disaster backup plan, electronic one on a floppy disk. Okay, this is we're on a floppy disk. That was electronic as we got back then. So
Okay.
I was feeling fine. I flew
Mm-hmm.
back to give a speech at the American Bankers Association Boston chapter, and I went to visit my
Right.
parents. And this thing was getting a little bigger. It was the size of a
Whoa.
marble. My dad,
Whoa.
we usually go work out and play tennis, and
Uh-huh.
he ended up taking me to a community hospital. And they said, "Oh, it's nothing. Just take some antibiotic. You'll be fine." Well, I wasn't fine because I did my speech. I wasn't feeling great. I went back, and the same doctor that was in the emergency room happened to be working 3 days later. And he said, "Okay, we're going to take a biopsy of it."
Uh-oh.
Yep. Uh-oh. So
Okay.
not only did they take one biopsy, they took two. And then the waiting game. All right, this is the waiting game. For weeks we didn't know what was
Mm-hmm.
going on. My parents were sweating it out. I was traveling and I wore glasses, so my glasses didn't sit quite right because it was getting bigger and turning like red to purplish and all that.
Oh my.
So they call me back to Boston, and I show up at this community hospital, and there's not one doctor, there's seven doctors
Whoa.
waiting for me, and they didn't really say much. They didn't say anything,
Oh
but
my.
you have an appointment in 3 hours at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Don't be late. And so I heard it, but I didn't really hear it. So I show up at
Exactly.
Dana-Farber. Yeah, I didn't get to really hear it. I'm 23 and a half years old, by the way. I'm a young guy, all right?
Oh my goodness.
I'm an athlete. I'm in good shape.
Uh-huh.
So
Uh-huh.
I get to Dana-Farber, and first thing I notice is that there's old people or there's little kids. There's little pediatrics.
Oh no.
And
Oh
I'm
no.
23, so the term young onset cancer didn't exist at that time. Where do I go sit? I went and sat with the little kids because they were just trying to play games, and I didn't know what was going on. They did a lot of tests. I get called into this older doctor's office that invented chemotherapy for blood cancers, and then they had a young doctor with him in a white coat behind him, and my parents were sitting behind me, and he says, "You have stage 4 T-cell accelerated non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, blood cancer of your entire lymphatic system." And then I didn't hear another word. I didn't hear another word.
Wow.
I didn't. I just went into shutdown mode and denial.
Oh
And I look up at this younger doctor that's closer to my age. His name is Dr. Eric Rubin. He's now a very good friend of mine. And I go, "What is he talking about?" Long story after that is my mom is crying. My dad is a statue. And we finish up with the doctor. They said, "We're going to schedule you for more tests, and you got to start chemotherapy right away." And within like 2 days, we go home, and my twin sister, and that's important for a little later, comes to dinner. And my dad had run out to the library, and got a book on cancer that was probably 20 years old. We didn't know anything.
Oh wow.
So I want to tell you that my life came to a screeching halt at 23 and a half years old. I was about to execute on my career and keep moving up the ladder, and it stopped right there because I did some more testing, and 2 days later, I was supposed to do chemotherapy. I came in, and they were supposed to do chemotherapy, and chemotherapy are basically pharmaceuticals and drugs infused into you, poison, to try to kill the malignancy inside of you. And I didn't really know that, but my liver function was too high. So before I did that, they said, "You can't do it today. It's not safe. Your liver function is too high. You're going on a field trip." I go, "What am I, like 4 years old, or I'm going on a field trip?" He sent me, and this is incredible. He sent me to a cryogenic center at Newton Wellesley Hospital, 20 minutes away.
Interesting.
And I left a sperm sample, and they told me I was going to die. So I'm like, "What am I doing here?" But I did it. And then I sort of forgot about it. I went through a lot more treatment that was not working. So it was failing me. But my sister, my twin sister, typed for bone marrow transplant in late February. This is from October to February, and things aren't going well. I'm doing a lot of blood transfusions. I'm relapsing. I'm a lot of time in Dana-Farber's hospital. And I'm needing, blood and platelets. And my sister tested as an exact match, an HLA match. And that is a 1 in 25,000 chance. Okay. Roll the clock forward to May 17th of 1990. All right. They put me in there, and they have to eliminate your immune system. You don't remember this, but there was a movie with John Travolta called The Boy in the Bubble. He had no immune system. He was immunocompromised. So I'm immunocompromised at age 24. Okay. And I'm living COVID way before COVID. I had to wear a mask and gloves. I could get extremely sick for infections or fungus or viruses. And so I was alone a lot. I was playing Nintendo a lot by myself. So I went in there, and they blasted me with chemo. They blasted me with full body radiation, and they brought in a little bag, okay, to save my life, which had my sister's bone marrow in it. And this bone marrow bag dripped out into me. And they tell you it could kill you right away because the body could reject it, or the body, could accept it and have severe side effects. Well, I had a little bit of side effects, which is okay. But I'm looking at it. The room is filled with 20 people. And slowly but surely, because I'm stable, the room is empty. And finally, it's me and my mom. And my mom is all gowned up. Okay. And I'm looking and staring at this bag, this purple bag that emptied inside of me. All right. And I look at her and I go, "Put that in your pocket." She's like, no. I go, put it in your pocket. She's like, no, they're going to take it. They'll take it away. I go, no. So I'm here to show you, Joshua, this is my
Please.
bag that saved my life. This
Wow.
bag is a bone marrow bag of my sister's bone marrow that was injected into me on May 24th of 1990 that saved my life.
Wow.
This is my bag of
Wow.
life. So that's
That's
miracle
it.
number
That's
one.
it.
And
That
I
is
went on to a
miracle
clinical
number
trial.
one.
I know it. I went on to a clinical
Mhm.
trial, and it strengthened my DNA, and it got me back. And then when you're done, they don't tell you anything. They say you'll go on surveillance. You're going to have scans and blood tests. Go resume your
Right.
life. Well, I'm
Yep.
135 pounds and bald. So I had to then resume my life. So I'm going to stop there because the story, I moved out to California to resume my career and put myself back together. I call it putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. But that's cancer one. It was a miracle. And I am very blessed and lucky. Medical technology and my sister saved my life.
Absolutely. And what a story that you just spilled onto us, Howard. It is way back, what, 1984, and it's not even like you're
This is
talking
89. 89, I got diagnosed. In 90,
89
I had
rather.
the
Yeah.
transplant. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
34 years ago. 34 years ago.
Still 30, exactly 34 years ago. First off, shout out to your twin sister. Shout out to the savior of the day. Thank you so much. Because of her, and of course because of the doctor and medical technology, even back then, we are here today. You are here today sharing that story. So thank you so much for that, Howard. Howard, how did this change your life? You put yourself back together, Humpty Dumpty pieced himself together, or how, what we may call it, Howard Dumpty Brown, or you know, he started piecing himself together.
That's right.
What led you to being into this path of being an entrepreneur? How did this influence that path?
So it's part of my DNA, but it's also part of it's learned. And so Babson
Mhm.
College set me up to understand about being an entrepreneur of all kinds. It takes many shapes and
Yes.
forms to be an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
And so when
Hmm.
I moved out to California, I was 135 pounds and bald, and I restarted
Right.
my career with that computer company. And I had to get myself, basically back together again. So emotionally, physically, financially with my
Yes.
career, okay, and in
Perfect.
relationships. I basically had to re-enter the workforce and just the world in general. And
Yes.
I had a clean slate out in California. I wanted warm weather, and
Hmm.
I had to exercise a lot. I had to get enough sleep. I had to hydrate, but I started
Hmm.
to build up my resilience, my mental toughness, and I got my career going back in a big way. So I went from that big computer
Interesting.
company to a startup. The startup started to blossom. I got recruited to Silicon Valley. I met my wife. I became a
Awesome.
big brother. I'm doing community service, and I'm playing tons of basketball. That's how I
All
put Humpty
right.
Dumpty back together again.
All right, that's fantastic. I mean, like, what a comeback, right? Because there is no way but up. And you actually, to me, it sounds without you telling, you started to actually live your life fully. You are started to actually take the opportunities that were in front of you. You found love, you found career, you found you found yourself basically. And this is, um, more than anyone could ask for after a life or after an experience that you just went through. But story's not over, Howard. Right? It's not
Right.
yet over. That's the thing. And this was 34 years ago. You started finding yourself again. And Howard, a second diagnosis. A second diagnosis. You relapse. What happened? Talk to us about that.
Well, before that, I got to do one step back. Okay. The step
Oh,
back is
please,
that
please, please.
I was living in Silicon Valley. I had done a great startup. We took the broadcast and the film and TV industry from analog to digital. I was having tremendous success in my career,
Yes.
and you fall into some old habits. And I fell into being a workaholic, but my work-life balance was a little off. But because
Okay.
that's all I craved. When you're a patient, you just want to get back to your old life. So although
Yes.
I was doing a lot of community service, I found love. I was a mentor, big brother, playing
Hmm.
basketball. I still was working way out of control because I was building up a business unit in the broadcast space from zero to
Right.
$39 million. And that takes
Right.
real effort,
Wow.
real teamwork. and you have to have the right product at the right time. So I was doing that. So I got recruited to Silicon Valley, and that was my dream. My dream was to
Wow.
actually be in the startup world of the dot-com craziness. And I did as a vice president of sales for an audio company at the time called Liquid Audio,
Wow.
and it doesn't
Fascinating.
exist anymore. Yeah, I was in
Okay.
what I did for video. They wanted to do for audio. So I'm married about 7 years. I got married overlooking the Pacific in Los Angeles at Shutters on the Beach, great hotel.
Beautiful
And
life.
my
Wow.
wife and I decide to have a child. And in order for me to
Mhm.
have a child, we had to call for that sperm, that frozen sperm. Miracle number 2. 11 years later, frozen sperm gave us a daughter. That's part of Humpty Dumpty's magic major story, Miracle 2.
That is a
So
major story.
we had a beautiful, healthy baby girl named Emily. She's our miracle girl. We call her our frozen kidsicle, and it's in the book. So it's just incredible. So that's why I want to tell you that I had a full life. I'm working in
It is.
Silicon Valley, got to take some companies to exit and public offering. I'm doing a lot of community service, and we have a beautiful family, and it was just great. And then Silicon Valley went from the .com to the .bomb. Things changed
Yep.
really
Yep.
quickly. And so I ended up starting my own platforms, and I built the platforms for the world's largest social network. Most people get confused and they think the largest social networks in the world are technology, but they're not. You know what the world's largest social network is, Joshua?
Tell us, Howard. What is it?
Faith and religion are the world's largest social networks.
Of
They're the
course.
oldest and largest social networks. So I built platforms for faith and religion, and I did my own startups. So I had a nonprofit called Planet Jewish and another one called Circle Builder, and I built online communities. And this is when digital was in Web 1.0 to Web 2.0. Mobile was not there yet, but it was my entrepreneurism that built and raised the funds for these companies. I built the code. I didn't type the code. I architected it with some partners, and we rolled it out, and we started to monetize and deliver real value to the religious space. So being a church to have a website, but also interactive with their members. This is now commonplace today, but back in 2008, that was not commonplace.
Yes.
Not
It
commonplace
wasn't
at all.
commonplace. That's
So
true.
I get a call from my sister, and she says, I'm moving to Michigan. Well, I married my wife's from Michigan, and we had children that were 4 and 6 years old. And so I left Silicon Valley in 2005, okay, because I made a conscious choice to raise our families together. I made the chance to live in the Midwest, where it was a little less expensive, maybe a lot less expensive. And I still was running my platforms, and I had my life back. 26 years of health and prosperity and family. It was amazing. And at age 50, because that was the screening age, I went in for my colonoscopy. And I should have went in 10 years earlier, because we wouldn't be talking right now, because I would have just continued with my life. But instead, I woke up from that colonoscopy, and I had an 8.5 centimeter tumor in my intestine. And that was stage 3B colorectal cancer. It was colon cancer specifically. My life stopped in its tracks again. Lightning struck twice for me. And what we know now is that if you get a young onset cancer when you're younger, there is a chance for you to get a secondary cancer. I had no idea. But the amount of chemotherapy, the amount of radiation, I should have been screened earlier for colorectal cancer, and that might have been saved my life, or clipped a polyp, or just an earlier stage. But instead, stage 3, and a year later, metastatic stage 4 means that it spread from my colon outside to a vital organ. It spread to my liver and my stomach lining and to my bowel. But this time, I'm a dad. I'm married. For 22 years. I have a daughter that's a freshman in high school, right? So the game's changed. So where my parents were my caregivers when I moved back to Boston, moved home with mom and dad at age 23 and 24 and 25, I actually had responsibility, and was living and married. So my wife was my primary caregiver. And I started in with chemotherapies and surgeries and clinical trials, and it failed me. It didn't work.
Oh, no.
And I think he told me that, if you doctor Google, which I don't recommend, stage 4 colorectal cancer, it's a bad thing. And colorectal cancer is on the rise right now. There's 153,000 diagnoses in the U.S., and 100,000 people will be in treatment, and 53,000 will die. It's a number 1 killer for men under 50 and number 2 for women right now. And I immerse myself digitally. I got diagnosed in a digital time where I was able to hook up with these advocacy groups, get really smart as a patient, and be able to learn how to actually help collaborate with my oncology team.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
in March of 2018, I had a major surgery where they cut me from the chest down to my pelvis. They cut out all the cancer they could see, dead and live cell. They took out my gallbladder. They took out parts of my bladder. They took part of my liver. They took my stomach linings out. It was a 13.5-hour surgery. And they poured hot chemotherapy for absorption in the pelvis and abdomen to kill microcell cancer. Now, it's a little bit controversial, but long surgery. I woke up in the ICU. I pressed the morphine drip button, and then you wait to see the scar tissue heal and to see if your cancer if they got it all. It was intense,
That is
intense. 2 years
intense.
to recover. Yeah.
That is intense, Howard. First off, you'll probably be seeing my reaction to that all throughout. My mother
Yeah.
passed with colorectal cancer, and
Oh,
it's something that it's true. It's quite quick. It's the onset, the metastasizing. Am I saying that right? When it comes big metastatic, it's really fast, and it just
yeah.
goes like, um, and yeah, it's something that's really that resonates with me. That's something that's pretty close um to what happened to ours as well. And but Howard, this is really intense. The story I thought was already intense in your first diagnosis, and you dropped this second bomb, which is probably,
Yeah.
I don't know which one is more intense. The first one, this probably is more impactful, right? Because the first one, you got your life together, you lived a full life, family, daughter. I was skipping ahead there a little fast because it was truly a full life, and now you are in the hospital bed, 13-hour surgery, hot chemotherapy poured into you. I cannot think of a more intense. You said it took you 2 years to recover, Howard.
Oh, yeah.
This, I cannot imagine anything more that describes resilience and wanting to live that life again, wanting to take that chances. But of course, this time you had your daughter, you had your wife, you had a completely full life ahead of you. But how did you dig deep? How did you dig deep, Howard? And where did you find that hope? Where did you find that resilience to have another second life after this?
Well, I will tell you this, that still I have some side effects. They call it PTSD or chemo brain a little bit. I
Yeah.
don't remember names as well, but I'm good. I have chemo induced peripheral neuropathy. I have digestive problems, but I'm breathing. And here's the deal, that you have to set some short and long term goals. So my longer term goal was to see my daughter graduate high school, college, and now I'll put it out there, now that I'm 4 years, no evidence of disease, and going to fifth year, hopefully remission. And I'm still under surveillance, blood tests and scans, but now twice a year, not 4 times a year. So I'm on the right path. I want to walk my daughter down the aisle at the right time.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
And so she's now graduated University of Michigan, and she's a TV reporter in Missoula, Montana. But that is
Wow.
the goal. Now, what did I learn from all this? Is I learned that we are on this planet to basically learn from that darkness. Okay.
Mhm.
And so what I did during treatment and during some recovery times is I actually dictated a book, my memoir. I walked back my
Yes.
life. It was so cool and so healing. 158 Zoom interviews of the most influential, important people of my life. And those transcripts became drafts, drafts became chapters, and the chapter became a manuscript. And 3 years later, this is all during the pandemic, okay, Shining Brightly, my
Wow.
life's memoir, okay, which is a
Mhm.
life of leading a resilient life with hope, and all the lessons in between, from my grandmother coming to this country, my grandfather fighting in World War II, all the way to the chapter called Sharing Hope. So this is an inspirational book that talks about how you're supposed to live a life of kindness and a life of giving and
Wow.
a life of gratitude and a life
Wow.
of healing, but also a life of not making the bad decisions and learning from them, like choosing hate. A lot of hate going on in the world right now.
Of course.
So
Of course.
I ended up changing, and Humpty Dumpty version 3.0 is now still an entrepreneur, but I'm an
Yep.
author. All right. I am
Nice. Yeah.
a motivational speaker on many stages
Yes.
around the world.
Hmm.
I am
Hmm.
a hugely successful podcaster, and I call myself, I'm a health tech consultant, but also I'm a survivorship
Hmm.
coach. And a survivorship
Whoa.
coach helps you, okay, get back up again from anything that life has thrown you, business has thrown you, health has thrown you, or relationships have thrown you. So I'm a life coach, and I help people get through that because life is very difficult. And if I can do it, it can be done. Anyone can do it. And so, and I take my proudest moments in being a mentor to young entrepreneurs, okay, that have to go through all the trials and tribulations. But I want them to not make the same mistakes of being a workaholic and understanding that you need to actually take care of yourself when you're building a business at any stage. Because if
Wow.
you're not at full strength, you can't be the best you.
That's true. That is true. And I cannot put it more much more better than you did, Howard. What a fantastic way to kind of put it all together as well. Howard, your memoir, Shining Brightly. I understand you mentioned you took um, Zoom interviews. So you talk to people to talk to your friends, you put it together, turn it into a book. And to me, this also gives emphasis on support networks, how important it is, right? And when it comes to, of course, by the way, I love the book cover. I love the phoenix, the around the shining brightly, because you have, there you go. You have
Joshua,
the,
it's a dove made to look
oh,
like a
it is a
phoenix
dove.
rising again. It is
There you
actually a
go.
dove. The artist used the phoenix because Rise of the Phoenix. I didn't really love the look of a phoenix. This is my energy shining brightly, okay, to the dove, meaning peace, love, and hope, illuminated in the light bulb
Yes,
around the world. So
yes,
that
precisely.
I'm so glad you asked about that, but because people do think it's a phoenix, and someone also called it a pigeon once, but it's a dove.
That's funny. What? Yes. Well, you did say that it does look like a phoenix. It was made to look
Yes,
like a phoenix somehow,
it was.
but the dove, being depicted as a phoenix, shining brightly around the world. It all makes sense. It all ties into your story. I love it. I love this story of yours and what you've told us so far. And of course, I invite our audience listeners to check out your memoir. Go get the book. But again, Howard, this all came from all different chapters of talking to your support networks, talking to your friends. Talk to us about how important having support network is as an entrepreneur, but also as an individual, because you mentioned that you do have to take care of yourself. You do have to be at full strength in order to become successful in life and in business. Talk to us a bit about that,
I
Howard.
will, and that's such a great question, Joshua.
Hmm.
Because what happens is that when things get rough, people tend to isolate. All right, and
Yes,
that's
of
actually
course.
the not the thing to do. The actual opposite thing to do is to actually bring in, okay, resources, bring in the cavalry, okay, and I'll do that. It's a team sport, okay. Building a company and business is always a team sport, okay. Even golf and tennis, which are individual sports, you have your trainer and you have you have your coach and you have others around. You
Yes,
have your business people. You have to surround
yes.
yourself with that. So in cancer, I surrounded myself with support networks. So from my caregiver wife to Colon Town, which is an online
Hmm.
community supporting colorectal cancer patients and caregivers, I had that support. But I also had my daughter's soccer team parents, the school. I had people praying for me all over the world. I called the cavalry digitally because Facebook and we could text and we had WhatsApp. So anyone who was sending me a prayer, I would take it. So people came to us in my time of need because I called
Yes,
the cavalry and I let them help me. You have to let them in. And that
yes.
was what I needed at the time. Now, the
Hmm.
same thing as an entrepreneurial venture, you need others. You need angel investors to believe in you. You need your shareholders to believe in you. You need your customers to believe in you. And so
Of
you need to
course.
rally the troops in your time of need. But in the good times, then you can share the wealth back. And I
Of
call that
course.
light. So the dark times are darkness, but sharing the light is prosperity, is profits, is basically love and gratitude. And you can share those on a daily basis, right? And make it
Yes.
part of your daily basis. So I would
Wow.
say making sure that you're emotionally sound, you're physically fit, you're financially on good standing and in relationships. And that's the hardest one, right?
It
Relationships are
is.
always
It
the
is.
hardest one. And so,
Hmm.
but I will tell you that it's a team sport. Okay. And I did not isolate, and I allowed myself to accept help.
Beautiful.
And I'm very prideful. Okay. Entrepreneurs, we think we've got it all figured out and can do it ourselves. That's not the
Uh-huh.
case.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
don't isolate and accept help.
I love that. And relationship is such a crucial factor, right? Because often the idea is I can only be successful in one area. I can't be successful in relationship and business at the same time because I have to focus on my business. I can't take my attention away from that, so my relationship is going to suffer. But really, we really need relationships, right? We need these connections. We need the support system surrounding us. We need people around us. And more than that, Howard, I love what you say and what you always keep bringing up: kindness, values, gratitude. These are all very essential to life and often looked over when it comes to the hustle culture and just working and just pushing and all that. And it's not preached enough, in my opinion, where gratitude is important. Values are just as essential when building a business and also building your life. Howard, as we near the end of this show, thank you so much for everything that you've shared to us today. But we're looking to the future now, Howard. Howard, I am very interested in the insight and the views that you might have as a two-time cancer ship survivor. How are you looking at the future? How differently is it now from the first diagnosis to the second diagnosis? What is the future for Howard Brown? How do you see yourself in the next couple of years? Your aspirations for shining brightly and any other ventures? How do you hope to continue to inspire and impact others? What is the future for Howard Brown?
So there's three lanes that I try to make primary. You can have multiple lanes, but primary lanes. And so I shine brightly. I'm going to put on the shades for you right now. We're
Yes,
shining
please.
brightly. Yeah, we're shining brightly together
Yes, we
because
are.
I am a champion for
Hmm.
survivorship. And survivorship is not just cancer, but life. And I want people to actually look authentically and live authentically, live
Wow.
intentionally. All right. And I want people to actually take that, really look at themselves and do that. And I have a discussion guide from my book that talks about survivorship. And then the second one is actually mentorship. The lost art of mentorship is leadership. Take interest in someone else and mentor them along, or allow yourself to be mentored. And I have mentors that are mentoring me now as
Mhm.
an author and a speaker and a podcaster and a consultant and a survivorship coach. Allow yourself to be taught by others that can lead you to a higher levels. And then lastly,
Wow.
interfaith relations is really important. Is that, look at you, Joshua? Okay, Filipino, different culture, different foods, different history, different background. You have an interesting culture. I'm Jewish.
Mhm.
Okay, my family's from Russia originally. I have interesting culture and background. We need to live on this planet together and harmoniously live together. And so
Yes, yes.
understanding and living under one tent, a stranger under one tent, is a really
Mhm.
important value that I trust and I make part of my life. So those are my three things that I will help continue to motivate, educate, and inspire about. And also, I don't want anyone to get cancer. So I tell everyone to go get screened and keep your health up. So that's the third thing always.
Yes, absolutely. Take care of yourself and remember to shine brightly, and shine brightly you are, Howard, because my goodness, what a story and what a character and personality that you're bringing forward to us today. Howard, thank you so much for sharing all that insight. I am quite I'm quite honored. I'm pretty happy that we had this interview as well. I am glad for the audience and listeners as well. I'm sure they will also enjoy this as well. Howard, I'd love to give you this opportunity. Where can we find you? Where can we connect with you? Where are you most active at? Where can we find your book? Of course, let us know.
So you can contact me for a book, or Amazon.com always has books, and they have my book there too. And I'm at shiningbrightly.com, and you can learn about the book. You can learn about my speaking opportunities, and also my podcast. And then most importantly, my advocacy is there. So my work in the cancer world, my work in entrepreneurship with Babson College, and my work in the interfaith world is there. That's really what makes a whole person. Okay. I love my business accomplishments and successes, but I also love my service. And service is a purpose driven life. And that's what I do. So reach me at Shining Brightly. I'm interactive. We'll get back to you. And please reach out to me. I'd love to hear from your audience.
Of course, and of course, I would also love to invite our audience and listeners check out Howard Brown's podcast, highly successful podcast, reaching 125,000 downloads. Right, 125,000 downloads. So,
That's right.
ladies and gentlemen, Howard, thank you so much for being on here. It has been an honor. Thank you for being on the show.
Joshua,
Take us home.
it's just
One
a pleasure.
last thing. Tell us.
I got it.
One last
I got it
tell
for you.
me.
So first of all, I want to thank you and show gratitude for you sharing me with your audience. And I love your show, and it's growing like weeds too. So I wish you only the success. But here's the thing. All we have to do each day is to shine brightly just a little bit each day for ourselves. Take care of yourself at home. Then go lift up others in your community, in your neighborhood. Do a random act of kindness. Share some gratitude. Have some solitude. Be kind. And then the world will become a better place. I promise you it will. We'll all shine brightly together. Thank you.
I love it. And yes, precisely. To all our audience listeners out there, remember to shine brightly. Howard Brown, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
To all audience listeners, see you on the next one.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.